you're watching the replay, go ahead and skip this countdown. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and skip this countdown. What's up, everyone? Don't be shy. Say hi. Don't be shy, say hi, and where you're from. Andrew, what's up? Noor from Pakistan. Charlene from Seattle. What's up, James? What's up, Dorothy? What's up, Bradley? What's up, Tim? Aleyda, hello.
Hello, how are you, Paul?
Good. All right, I could hear you just fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you well.
Nice, you sound really good. Okay. All right, so we got about 3 minutes, and I will be going over a few video clips in the beginning, about 7 to 8 minutes, and then I'll introduce you in.
Perfect, excellent.
All right. Don't be shy. Say hi and where you're from. Greg from the Bay, what's up? Tim from Ohio, what's up? Bradley, here's your air horn. One minute, guys, 1 minute. Brion Lopsy. Hello.
Hey, time to get it started, no delay, let's work. Wanna see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera, steady dropping knowledge. Over 15 years in the game, so he knows all about it. Master the art of SEO, you will be amazed. Time to get your brand off page to on page. Dropping knowledge, legendary for sure. Whether you're just getting started or self-employed entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go. Subscribe to the SEO video show.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the SEO video show where SEO is alive and fun. My name is Paul Andre De Vera, aka Dre, and I curate SEO videos released in the past week into about 1-minute clips. My favorite part of the show is when I get to introduce my guest, and my guest this week is the one and only SEO speaker, author, and consultant, Aleyda Solis. Before we get started, let's say what's up to everyone in chat. I see Ramingo, Brian, Greg, Tim, Noor, Charlene, Bradley, Dorothy, and so much more. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Now let's pick this week's winner. This week, Noor, I told you were going to be a winner this week, so good luck. Congratulations to you. You get the 1-month access to IMG courses. Please don't forget to put I love SEO in the chat or in the live chats and in the description below or in the chats below, and you will be entered automatically. All right. So don't forget to say I love SEO in there, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And let's get on with the show.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Why do SEOs love the farmer's market? Lots of organic content.
All right, first with Google. Google posted a blog on video SEO best practices for e-commerce. They talk about where videos can appear in Google search, common uses of video on e-commerce sites, and getting the most out of your Google search and discover. Now to Maria Haynes talks about a new Google Webspam report on her podcast. Let's listen in.
Google released their report on how they fought spam for 2020. They said, quote, by combining our deep knowledge of spam with AI, last year we were able to build our very own spam fighting AI that is incredibly effective at catching both known and new spam trends. What I thought was most interesting about this report was the little diagram that they used that showed all the different ways that they work to detect spam. And they said that it starts with crawling. I thought this line was important. Crawling is when our automatic systems visit content and consider it for inclusion in the index we use to provide search results. Some content detected as spam isn't added to the index. Now, we've been talking a lot over the last year or so about sites that are having indexing issues. I didn't catch that the first time I read this, though, that they've just told us that they've used artificial intelligence to understand content on websites. And they've said that this is what led to the product reviews update. Advances in AI help tremendously in understanding content of sites, is what they said. My theory for a while now is that Google has been using their advancements in understanding language to better understand whether content meets the needs of searchers. Language processing, natural language processing, that's a branch of AI.
So be sure, I mean, I know we all remember us having our sites pages not indexed back in those days. So maybe they were testing this algorithm out and this AI. You can also check out Google's NLP API to even check out your content. The number one SEO mistake, content mistake, is having weak introduction paragraph. Matt Diggity shares 3 tips to hook your visitors to reduce bounce rate and have more extended engagement with your site. Let's check it out.
I have 3 super effective approaches to hook people in your introduction paragraphs. The first is called the educator. Right away in the introduction paragraph, you hit them with some facts. Like I did before with, in this year alone, over 25 juicers have entered the market. This lets your reader know that you've done your research, you've already taught them something new, and if they continue reading, they're gonna learn even more. The second is called fear factor. You appeal to the emotion of fear to get people to continue reading. For a DUI lead generation site, I would write something like, DUI cases that don't have legal representation typically have 25% more expensive fees and license revocations of twice as long. You can see how this one not only invokes fear, but it dabbles in a bit of the educator as you hit them with some hard facts. Double whammy. Next is the funny guy, and your purpose here is just to entertain them. So for a fishing pole review page, I might do something like this. Let's set things straight. I'm not much of an interweb guy, but I do know a hell of a lot about fishing. This year I spent over 100 days on the water and tested over 40 different fishing poles. Most of them suck, like this piece of crap, but some of them really fit the bill. The funny guy just wants to make sure that the person feels entertained, and that's the
Writing a good hook not only works for just your paragraph and your blogs. I mean, you can do it for your videos. You can also do it for your meta descriptions. I mean, I highly recommend this book, Hook Points. It's also a great way to practice writing good hooks. What is SEO Currency? Kyle Roof explains one of his most significant SEO test findings on Chase Reiner's channel. Let's listen in.
A lot of it was just more conceptual, like there's no SEO currency. So for example, you can't trade H2s for H3s or vice versa. Like, so if somebody's got, if they've optimized their H2s, you can't be like, well, I'm just gonna do more H3s. Now, you can't trade one signal for another. Each of those signals are evaluated separately. So that's why also where I think, conceptually people are like, oh, I SEO'd my page. Well, what'd you do? And they might have written some stuff, but they really weren't thinking about all the different elements and all the different places that Google could be looking, because Google looks at those different spots and is looking for terms in there and is weighting them accordingly. So that was actually one of the biggest discoveries, was just in that there is no SEO currency. You can't trade one thing for another. You have to evaluate each of those sections individually, and you can't really evaluate a whole page. You have to look at the different sections on a page.
There you go. I mean, check that out. Kyle is also one of the founders of the IMG courses. So be sure to check that out. There are also 3 parts to Google's SEO rankings in mobile. Lyamen Savy tells us those 3 factors on the Semrush channel this week. Let's check it out.
There's 3 parts to ranking factors. One is the indexing and rendering, which is basically, does your website have the right technical SEO to make it easy for Google bots to find the content on your website? And so mobile indexing rendering is you're basically optimizing for Google bots to make it easy for Google bots to find your content. So both mobile responsive and mobile websites do a great job at that. The second part of it is mobile content parity. So for example, if your desktop website has more content, or it has more images, more words, more internal linking than a mobile website, then once Google switched to mobile first indexing, you might experience some traffic loss, because if Google sees less, if your mobile website offers less, then Google sees less. However, mobile responsive websites usually do a really great job at meeting that requirement as well, because mobile responsive website just means it's a desktop website responds to mobile, so it's the same amount of content. So both mobile responsive and mobile first websites do a great job at that. Now, the last part of a SEO ranking factor is the usability. So the usability, it's all about how do you optimize for the user and not just the Google bots. So even though your website might have the content, even though your website might have the right schema markups and things like that, but if the user experience is clunky and hard to navigate on a small device, and if people are bouncing, leaving your website, then that's actually going to hurt your organic ranking. So mobile responsive websites, they don't do a good job at the user experience. So that's when a mobile first website does an amazing job. So when you compare side by side mobile responsive versus mobile first, mobile responsive is a minimum viable product to meet the Google SEO organic ranking factors, but a mobile first website is a competitive advantage because it meets all. It meets the indexing rendering, it meets the content parity, and it meets also usability.
And if you need to test a little more about your mobile usability, I know Michael King put out a new tool on his website, iPullRank. Clint shares some news about the new schema testing tool on SEO this week. Let's check it out.
The schema.org testing tool is out. It's marked as beta. If you don't know, Google is killing the structured data testing tool, the Google structured data testing tool. If you notice this is the Google structured data testing tool. they gave it to schema.org so that it can put it up and keep it live and keep the test alive. And that is awesome. One thing you have to note, though, is that now this will be run based off of schema.org. So everything that's in schema.org, if you're using an API testing tool like Sitebulb, for example, then you're going to see the same thing in this here. It does not necessarily count what Google's doing because there are some differences. There are some fields and stuff that Google uses that is not necessarily standard in schema.org. And so you're going to have to still test your schema in the rich snippet testing tool. I know it's harder to read into that tool. I know it's kind of a pain. But I think you'll find that the combination of these tools makes manual schema process a whole lot better.
This brings me to my tweet of the week. By my guest today, she shared a very handy bookmarklet to check your schema out. You can grab the link below. Before an SEO requires more than becoming an SEO requires more than just knowing SEO. Whether you're in freelance or an in-house SEO, this soft skill is a must. Let's look into this past week's Crawling Mondays episode.
Communication in terms of listening to others. I think we're in a world where many people talk about what they want, and they want to get a point across, sort of their point and how they think SEO will help that client and what they suggest. And sometimes they don't always listen. And that also goes for the client too. So there are exercises that people can do to be more open to listening. Actually, improv is a great one. I did improv, been doing off and on for about 5 years, and it really helps you to listen to others, digest what they've said, and then reply. Because, well, you can see that next time you have conversations with people, not just clients, see, are people paying attention to what you're saying and responding to that, or are they just giving you your opinion? So I would say communication about listening on both sides is something really important for people that are in agencies, but also very important for people that are freelancing too. And it ties into the soft skills that we touched upon earlier.
I highly recommend Toastmasters as well. I'm a member of Toastmasters, and that really, really helped with my communication skills, whether it's listening and speaking. I highly recommend. This brings me to my favorite part of the show. Don't forget to ask questions throughout our conversation, as it's the best way we can all learn. All right, let me get this thing started here. All right.
Aleyda is a well-known international SEO consultant with more than 10 years of experience. She contributes articles to Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, Moz, HubSpot, and Think with Google. She's the author of the book SEO, The Key Essentials. She spoke at more than 100 conferences in over 20 countries. She's the author of the SEO FOMO, one of the most read SEO newsletters with the news, guides, and jobs with more. And with more than 11,000 subscribers. She is the founder of LearningSEO.io. She is the producer of Crawling Mondays. She was on the Forbes list as one of the 10 digital marketing specialists to follow in 2015. She was in Entrepreneur as one of the 50 online marketing influencers to follow in 2016. She was the winner of the award European Personality in Search in 2018. HubSpot lists her as one of the 59 women in marketing to follow. Please welcome the founder of Parity, Aleyda Solis.
Hey, Aleyda, hello, and welcome to the SEO video show.
Hello, how are you? And you know what? Next time that I feel a little bit down, I am totally watching this again. I'm going to record it. Thank you very much. You're definitely too kind.
Oh, no. You deserve that. You're such an influence in the industry, and I'm so blessed, and thank you for coming and being my guest here on the show. I mean, I know, like, I reached out to you just quickly, and I was like, oh, wow, she accepted my invitation. Thank you. Okay, Aleyda. Is it Aleyda or Aleyda? Or both?
Aleyda.
Aleyda.
Yeah, don't worry, though. Don't worry. It's okay.
All right. Okay. So I want to start off with learning SEO.io. You know, that website, I wish I had back in 20 years ago with this. I mean, what did something like that, how'd you create that? Or why'd you create that? And like, what motivated you to create a resource like that?
Yes, well, I think mainly two things, right? On one hand, I always get asked from random emails to tweets to, I don't know, LinkedIn messages asking me about how can I start in SEO, or I already know the SEO basics or fundamentals. How do I learn about, I don't know, link building or technical SEO or canonicalization, about specific topics or areas? And I found myself again like sending some of sort of like the same group of guides, recommendations about each area. And I was like, I ended up doing a little bit like a cheat sheet or a list that I already had that literally I use as an input initially for learning SEO, because I was referring again and again some of the same resources, right? And then on the other hand, I had the opportunity to mentor someone last year who was relatively new in SEO, and this person was like, oh, but again, I see a lot that is being shared about Python, but I also actually wanted to learn more about HTML and JavaScript. So and I was like, oh my God, like it's true. Like if someone enters right now SEO on like it happened with us, right? It's not about lack of information. It's because there's so much information, especially, for example, if they go to Twitter, right? SEO Twitter, and they start following everybody. They will see, oh my God, EAT, Python, or online PR or digital PR, right? So there are so many different areas within SEO, and if you are just starting, you can go pretty crazy, and the learning curve can be certainly very, very high. If you start like trying to be like a specialist in everything, it is simply not viable. You need to start one step at a time with one area at a time. So all of this was what incentivized me to say, okay, if I was going to start in SEO, which are like the fundamentals, which are the areas, and how you can go deeper in each one of these areas, and how they connect with each other, like as a puzzle, right? And which are the ones that are actually like the building blocks and the fundamentals, which are those that are important, but it's more about being specialized. And this is how it all started, right? And when I first released it, realistically, I never expected it to have so much positive sort of a reaction from the community. And I was so happy to see it that I started to build more over it. And now, yes, it's a pretty like complete roadmap, I have to say. And what I am doing now is to even creating sections, particular sections, particular pages about starting again with the most fundamental topics, to feature not only the guides, the free guides, everything is free, the free guides and the free tools, but also the tips, asking tips to the people over Twitter about which are those snippets of information, that advice that you wish to have known when you started to learn about internal linking, or about technical SEO, or about link building, or about SEO reporting. So for example, today I publish about SEO reporting and measuring SEO, which, by the way, these are areas that tend to get confused all the time, but there are different steps, right? Highly connected, different steps. So anyway, so this is what I wanted, right? To help people, and also to show also at the same time how much of an opportunity there is in SEO, right? If you come with a technical background, there is more than enough for you to like develop yourself as a technical SEO. If you come from a marketing or PR background as a link builder, if you come from a content background as a content optimization specialist, right? Or if you have this strategic mindset, you can very well be an an SEO manager, or if you come from, let's say, I don't know, a sales sort of experience, you can also develop yourself as the leader or an SEO account manager. I don't know. So there's so many different ways to develop yourself professionally within SEO that is so exciting to see. Also, when seeing all of the roadmap, that I also wanted to incentivize that there isn't just a single way to develop yourself on SEO. That nowadays, thankfully, right, there's so many different ways.
Dropping it. I mean, Aleyda, I mean, it's like just 2 weeks ago when I did a search on LinkedIn, I saw for SEO and the jobs, I saw about 20,000 jobs, right, and available that had SEO listed. And just today, right before the show, 25,000. So people, it's the jobs are growing, but no one's filling them out. And this resource here that you have is like key to everyone to learn SEO. Because I mean, if anyone asks me how to learn SEO, I point them to your site. Your site is the one. I mean, right now, even if you even search your site like learning SEO, you are like position number 3 already. When I searched it, and it's like right under Moz. Moz has 2 positions, and you're right there, number 3. Learning SEO, a roadmap to learn SEO with free guides. And you know what really caught my attention too? Like when I was just looking, when I searched it, your meta description and meta title, it's a hook point. I see it here. You have your call to action. I mean, it's very alluring. I mean, do you pay attention to your meta titles?
I added also an FAQ, but it's not yet displaying the snippet. So let's see. And it also has a video with the video object structure data, and it's also not yet displaying the snippet. But yeah, I have been doing a little bit of work there to maximizing opportunities. Yes, indeed.
Nice. Love to see that. Again, learningseo.io is something you should check out, guys. You know what? Let's rewind this. All right, I need to turn back the clock. How did Aleyda learn how to learn SEO? And when'd you get into it? Tell us your early stages.
Yeah, I have to say, it was like pure chance, right? I was at the time in Salamanca, which is a student's town here in Spain. Actually, like I was enrolled in this e-commerce master at a time, because I came from this web design, web development background, and I wanted to learn more about online marketing, etc. Right? But then, ironically enough, I realized that I wasn't learning about that, but it was more about web development of e-commerce platforms, things like that. And I was like, So I started to look for jobs at online marketing agencies, and I realized that at that town, coincidentally, and luckily for me, there were a few online marketing agencies, and one of them was given they were looking to hire someone to pretty much to manage a network of travel websites, right, at the time. And I was like, I can definitely do that. And it was a perfect blend of activities for me, because you were in charge of the web design, but also the content, the promotion, the marketing. And so I got the job. And one of the ways to monetize the website at the end of the day was with affiliates, and one of the ways to get traffic to the website was with organic search. And at the time, I literally had no idea about organic search, but they taught me, because they were an online marketing agency. They had like already experienced SEO there in the agency who teach me and teach a group of us who were starting at the company at the time. And this is how I started. Right after a while, the person who was doing SEO at the agency left, and I started to, during that time, right, to get much more into SEO and much more. And then I realized that I actually really, really enjoy doing SEO. So when this person left after a while, they asked me, hey, do you want to get into the SEO department and focus only on SEO? Because, well, we see that you have that sort of profile, right? And I ended up saying yes. Well, and the rest is history, because I ended up focusing more and more into SEO. So it was sort of serendipity in a way, right?
And we're all happy that you did, right? I mean, that was nice. I mean, glad to have you in the industry and be a very influential person here in the SEO industry. And we learned a lot from you. Was there any person besides like that you, was it someone just inside the industry that you learned it, or was there anyone else that you're following? And yet, how was there any other knowledge that you're pulling it in from? Like, were you looking at blogs, websites?
At that time, you mean? Well, at that time,
Yeah,
the
at time.
SEO who actually taught me from scratch SEO, his name is Jorge Quintas. I don't know up to which point if he's still doing SEO, because that was a while ago. That was in 2007, and after a while he traveled. He went to another place. So I don't know if he continues, but yes, I will be forever thankful to him. And then also to my boss at the time at the agency that I entered. He knew about SEO. He wasn't an SEO, but he knew about SEO, and so he was sort of a guide to me too at the time. His name is Rene de Jong. After a while, he sold the agency, and he's now a venture capitalist or so, because yes, he has sold a few businesses, and he now invests. And so at the time, it was that at the agency. I have to say that they sort of like advised me and took me by the hand and taught me about SEO. But also at the same time, in parallel, I remember that at the time I read a lot about SEO and look a lot about SEO in places like SEO Book or SEO Moz at the time, and Webmaster Word at the time. So these were, I have to say, the three places. I started to also get into Twitter at the time. But yes, Twitter was nowhere as active as it is today, and there wasn't as much of information, right? So if you ask me, I will say, like, from online, these are like the three communities or three places that I actually entered to find and to look for information. I pretty much didn't post anything because I wasn't in the position to post anything at the time, or to share. I was learning a lot, right?
Yeah, SEO Book, that goes way back. I mean, I don't even know if some new SEOs even remember that site. I mean, it's by Aaron Wall, where it's like he would actually put out an ebook, a PDF. I remember printing it out every time he put out a new one. And then he kept updating it every week. I was like, oh, I can't print this out all the time because it just changes so much. So take us now that you learned it and you're at the agency, take us your journey to starting your own consulting agency. Is it Orienti?
Orienti, indeed.
Orienti.
Well, that was years after, right? I worked at that agency like for 4.5 years or so, and after a while, yes, I left for an in-house job, like typical evolution, right? After you spend some time at an agency, you want a little bit of more laid back to be able to also go much more in depth in a project. And I had a few in-house experiences. Then again, I went to work at from the agency side. But yes, it was at a point that I realized that after a while that I had already started speaking. I had already started blogging at the time. I started to get requests from companies asking me if independently, right? If I wanted to help them with their SEO, and so I realized that it was already the time for me to start becoming to become independent, right? To establish myself. I knew also very well that I didn't want it like typical agency of 30 people or 50 people to grow or to scale in size. That I don't necessarily enjoy that much of managing a business, right, or people or a team, but I do really enjoy doing SEO, engaging with clients and understanding their pains, their opportunities, developing a strategy with them. So that's part of the job. So this is why I decided to stay with a boutique SEO consultancy, to be able to handle myself the projects, to work with the clients, having like a small group of people supporting me, but being me who handled the relationship with the client and the process and the strategy with the client, right? So, and this is how I started. Coincidentally, and I do believe that this is like a very important part of how it all was designed, and one of the reasons where I am at the moment, right, is like when I started my own consultancy, one of the things that was clear to me at the time is that I wanted to keep working remotely, because I got the chance back in 2012 in one of those roles that I took in-house, right, to start working remotely for a company, and I was in Madrid, but the company was originally from Russia, and all of the team was like spread out all over Europe, the marketing team. So one of the decisions was that after that experience that I had enjoyed so much working remotely, and I started to see the opportunity and the flexibility to work remotely, was to keep working remotely as an independent consultant myself, and then establishing my own boutique SEO consultancy. And then in 2015, a lot of people at the time had already started to ask me, oh, how do you do it to work remotely? How do you do it by speaking around, traveling around, and working from whatever you are and doing so well, right? So this when I started, along other SEO friends from Spain, with Elisa and Christian at the time, Remoters, right? Remoters is a project that I have in parallel with my SEO consultancy, which is a remote work hub. We have a free job board, and literally, like, we have hundreds of jobs being posted each month for free, by the way. And there is an SEO section, and anybody can go and subscribe to the jobs alerts. You don't need to be coming back to look for the jobs every time, of course. So you just subscribe, and to, for example, if you're an SEO and you want to be alerted every time there is a new SEO job being posted, you will get an email automatically. And there are how-tos, there are resources, there are tools, there are guides, and our goal is to empower professionals and organizations who want to be able to work successfully remotely to do it so, right, with all of the resources and information that we share. So this is how it all became possible. And I'm very happy right now because I am able to blend my time and my efforts in things that I love. I love SEO. I love helping the clients that I do, working remotely also with so many different brands from all over the world. I have a couple of clients from here, from Spain, but most of my clients are from the US and then across Europe, right? And then on the other hand, to be able to allocate also my efforts and resources on Remoters, which is something that I believe a lot into, because I do believe that is like a power of good for people, for the community. Like I am a believer that, for example, there's people who are so well capable and experienced, and talent is everywhere, and unfortunately opportunity hadn't been until now with remote work, right? So that is why I do believe that is something very, very important, and I am very proud to be a remote work advocate because of that.
Yes, love it. All for the love and good. And that's remoters.net, right? That's remoters.net. Is that the website?
Indeed.
There you go, everyone. Remoters.net. Please check that out. You were talking about speaking, public speaking. This is something that my guests here bring up on a lot of our public speakers, and I'm curious to hear your story of public speaking and when your first opportunity came about. I mean, were you scared? Describe that to us, and maybe what conference was that? Yeah, tell us about it.
Well, I remember this is very funny, right? Like, I remember that potentially one of the first times that I spoke in Spanish, right? My native language here in Spain, was around 2010 or so at a local conference, and literally the worst potential first speaking experience. It was in like a close, or let's say like a small, not necessarily big, but a small sort of SEO conference that it was organized in Marbella, in the south of Spain. And I remember speaking at the time about local SEO, because at the company that I was working, it was a local SEO company. And I don't know why or how, at one point, like typical stuff, like a guy interrupted my presentation, and he was like, "Oh, but this," and then he got up and started to speak instead of me. At the time, it's like, what the hell? Yes, it was a crazy experience. And after a while, he sat down after he was finished. So potentially, I have to say that I had the worst potential first experience speaking, right?
God, yeah.
But yeah, so this is the proof that you shouldn't let those crappy experiences that we all face at some point to make you feel bad and don't make you speak ever again, right? Imagine if that had made me to do that, it would have been terrible. No, after that, I started to speak much more and share much more in local conferences here in Spain. I had that opportunity, thankfully, with the network that I had started to build by going to those first conferences, despite that even. And then it was internationally. It was in 2012, right? There was this event in Spain, the Moscation event that Moz organized, like in certain countries, like they were going like to interact with the community, and I pitched to speak in the event that they were doing here in Barcelona, and well, they chose me, and I had the opportunity to speak. And after they saw me speak there, they invited me to speak at MozCon in 2012. So imagine how crazy that is, that like the first international conference in English that I was invited to speak was MozCon, which is huge still, but imagine at that point for me it was like, oh my god. And then so I was like, oh my god, it cannot be that the first international conference in English that I speak is this one. I need to also speak at another place before a little bit, at least to warm up, right? Anyway, so I started to apply to other conferences. I realized that it's funny because it is sort of like, if I needed that opportunity to start believing that I was going to be able to speak internationally if I wanted in English too. So in any case, I applied to speak at SMX in London that year. That was like 2 months before MozCon, right? And I was picked. I remember being like super happy of being picked to speak at SMX in London. So I went, I spoke there around March or so, or April or something like that. And then on July, I went to the US to speak at MozCon. So these were like the two first international conferences opportunities for me. And it was so funny because of the way it happened, right?
All right. And you know what? I have to drop a knowledge bomb there, because don't let bad experience stop you from moving forward, right? I mean, you started with that interruption, which I can't imagine how that I would have felt if that happened to me. But you went forward, and look at you now. It's over there. And we got a comment here from Zen Lennon. I love how passionate you are, Aleyda. Thank you for creating so much opportunity for us who are SEO enthusiasts. So there you go, Aleyda. Thank you,
Thank you very
Zen.
much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so you're talking about public speaking, and then one of the other things that you've actually that's done so well is build a huge subscriber database, a subscriber email list. I mean, did it start off as something you promoted as an email list, or was this just your personal contacts at first? I mean, how did starting off SEO FOMO get started? Like, how did it come about? And
Yes. Yeah, so it is sort of like for the past few years, I have always set myself to try something new, to do something different. And 2 years ago, 2 years ago, it was to start with Crawling Mondays with my video video format show that now I also reformat to podcast, etc., to cover how-tos and SEO topics like every week, etc. And last year my goal was, I try already with the video thing, with the YouTube thing, which continues, by the way, but I was like how can I do to generate more subscribers to my video? And it's funny because it started like this. And then I started to ask other YouTubers or people who have also presence over YouTube. And I realized that a lot of their subscriptions and how they drove traffic or views to their videos was not necessarily because of the organic reach, even within YouTube or with Google, right? It was because of email subscribers, right? Because this is the sort of people who will build their email list, huge, etc. And it's easy to engage like this and to drive. It's better bottom of the funnel. I have to say social and other activities are very top of the funnel. This is very bottom of the funnel because you can have this sort of engagement and specific action with your email list, right? So I decided, I need to give this one another go, because in 2015 or so, I started it, in fact, and it was called Aleyda SEO Tips or something like that. And it became a little bit it was a little bit of a mess for my part, because I started well, but after a while I didn't send any newsletters, because it was with new SEO tips every time. So for example, if I was very busy or I was on the go or whatever, it's like, oh my God, I need to come up with a new SEO tip that I want it to be like meaningful or important or interesting enough, not something trivial, right? So that ended up like playing against me. So I started to retake it in another way, in a way that also will be useful for people. And I understood that one of the challenges that most of us have in SEO, also me, is to keep up, because there's always something happening, right? So this is how I reformatted my newsletter to become SEO FOMO at the time. And this is funny, without doing nothing since 2015 until last year or so, it had 1,200 subscribers. Because I had the description box on my website, and people who ended up like going from time to time to subscribe, right? So I told to myself, okay, I'm going to set this goal at the end of the day, at the end of the year. Sorry, I want to be able to grow my subscribers to 10,000, and I'm going to work to make it happen, right? So I started the SEO FOMO. I promoted it in social networks with my network. I started also to, let's say, diversify a little bit what I did, not only with the latest news, but also with people to follow, the free tool of the week. At one point when we were reaching like June or so last year, I realized that, well, I didn't have this 6,000 subscribers that I was meant at that point, right? So I started to think like, what can I do to start like accelerating the subscription rate to SEO FOMO? And this is how I did this giveaway last year, that I gave away like 21K worth of tools and SEO courses. It was like the SEO FOMO 5K challenge. And the goal was to reach the 5K subscribers. And after I reached the 5K subscribers, I was going to give away to people who had subscribed and confirmed that they wanted to participate the giveaway. And then I did it, and I reached the 5K subscriber, but it was already in July, right? So I was a little bit behind my goal. Then at that time, I say to myself, okay, what else I can do? And I started to see about, co-referrals with other newsletters. And then at that point, I started to see about a referral system or reward system, pretty much, to the newsletter. But then I started to test a few systems, and they were literally like too complex, not necessarily only focused on newsletters. And so I left it. I had a lot to do, a lot of projects, clients, etc. And then just before December, I realized it's like, I haven't reached the 10K subscribers. I need to do something with a boom. And this is how I started to test again all of the referral system. I identified a new referral system for newsletters that had just started a few months ago that is called Spark Loop. And this is how I started my referral program, right? Okay. And yes, it worked like a charm. It was crazy to see the subscription rate after that. You can literally see a before and after. And at the end of the year, again, I didn't got like what I had wished, the 10K subscribers, but I reached that point at the end of January, right? And now the newsletter has 12,700 subscribers, which I think is great, because actually, like, I understood after a while that a number doesn't mean much if it doesn't have engagement, right? I don't care about having 100,000 subscribers if they never open the newsletter or engage with the newsletter. And I am proud to see that, for example, the newsletter has an open rate of 40%. Wow. And it has a click rate of almost 13% too. So it has a really good engagement. And so the balance is important. And I'm planning to do something else too, something additional to incentivize the growth more. So stay tuned. But yes, I'm very happy where it has gone. I do believe that it is like giving back and allowing people to keep up with the latest best resources, and then on the other hand also showcasing free tools, free resources, also giving visibility to people within the community also that I recommend the SEO FOMO, SEO specialists to follow too. So yes, I like it to keep it blended like this and as a useful resource to receive every week.
Wow, those are some great tips there. Everyone, if you want to grow your list, you better rewind this and check that out. Okay, so we got a couple questions that came in here. We had one from Aman. Aman asked, what do you think, which trends will shake up the SEO world in the future?
Yes. So actually, this is great, Vito. I actually tweeted about this particular topic earlier today because they were saying that they had been someone who asked over Twitter a few days ago, and there had been quite a few comments from other people. So I actually tweeted here that what I do believe that is going to be game changing, and we are only at this point have seen like the peak of the iceberg, is what's coming with Discover. Discover is like the peak of the iceberg of that bridge that will connect with the next shift in the search paradigm. Because if you think about it, it literally changes the way that we consume information, because we are not proactively searching for information, but we are recommended information based on our preferences, right? So it's a queryless way to look for information. It's predictive search pretty much. And I do believe, well, it can be very powerful. I don't know if you, but I get certainly engaged every time that I go into Discover, right? And yes, I can see how that in the future also, it can be a little bit more difficult, let's say, to optimize for or to control or to predict as we do in SEO, right? Like we have already started little by little. I see especially people within the news sector, because there's a lot of informational content, especially that is being referred there. So yes, that is one thing that I can definitely see how it can be game changing within SEO. Imagine like being recommended resources that Google knows that you will like for, that you haven't even searched for, and well, it will change the like literally it will be a shift in the way that we look and consume information, right?
Dropping that knowledge bombs. Okay, so I'm curious. I mean, with Discover, do you know any tips on how to optimize for Discover? Even though this is queryless, how do you think like Google's pulling all this? I mean,
Indeed, it is trickier indeed. And in News Dash, I believe that John Shihada, he works at Condé Nast. He's like the head of SEO or audience development or something like that, even more than SEO, right? And he's very knowledgeable, and he has been playing around with this a lot. So I highly recommend a guide that he wrote. And literally, this has much more to do with the engagement of the user, with Chrome, with the emails that people open, the news that people or refer in the past, and they identify topics and areas and entities that Google identified that you are connected with and that you prefer to read about, and recommending more of the same, which can be a little bit scary, and you can go into like into your own bubble of information, right? But literally at this point is about like following certain best practices that Google has directly recommended, right? You need to have your images embedded on your website, and allow them to make them of at least 1200 pixels in wide, right? So there are certain minimum sizes of the images, because Google really like to have visually rich and high quality content there. Then of course you need to also that a snippet. Let me see, this preview snippet I think is in your OG tags. So that is another recommendation. And then the other recommendation is that it needs to be fast. A lot of websites that use AMP used to get a lot of very good visibility too because of this. And finally, there are these sort of EAT sort of best practices that you need to follow to make sure that the content is highly authoritative, that is not manipulative, etc. Right? So I have to say that, and I can refer to this. To these two news sources for Discover, right? Like the Google best practices, and then this article from John Shihada that literally like he went through like step by step, and all the connections and all of those data sources that he had identified that influence on that activity that Google took into consideration to recommend more related topics or information within Google Discover. And just to make sure that I didn't say anything wrong, right? Like I'm seeing here, it's 1200 pixels wide and enabled by the max image preview large setting, right? Or by using AMP. That is another option. So yes, we need to follow certain best practices that, like, this is the base that Google even document in their own Google Search Central documentation. So take a look at that, definitely. And then on the other hand, what I will say is also to monitor very closely what tends to work well within your website in the Google Search Console, right? There will be certain topics, and this is what I do, especially with certain type of clients that I have in the fitness sector, that tends to perform well in that. And then also with remoters, my own website, there's always certain type of topics that will spark this sort of engagement within your users and your audience. So it's important to identify those trends or those patterns that you can reuse within your own content. And of course, there is the thing, unlike and a little bit like SEO, but unlike, it's not like so much of a rule of thumbs. It will be completely different depending on your particular topics and the type of let's say, of engagement that your audience have with you, and the way that you engage with your audience. How do you refer the content, or how your audience can refer your content? Can they share it within social, or can they share it, or do you share it via newsletter, for example, another way? So there's so many different ways. So I like the fact that it's a little bit more, let's say, user behavior oriented, that is like more integral than purely search, right? But so you need to engage, and you certainly will have better chances if your audience is very engaged with your content by default. So I love that part of it, like from a psychology perspective. How do you connect better with your audience and incentivize your audience to engage, to refer, to share your content every time, right? A little bit like with SEO with links, right? How do you make your audience to link to you without having necessarily to actually ask them to link? Or, so anyway, so it's a little bit like this. But yes, please do take a look. Unfortunately, and this is the thing, I had one of the goals that I had this year, and I was mentioning before that I tend to set these goals every year. And this year, like, my goal was to write a book that I haven't finished yet, that I should have already finished, but I haven't. I have it there, but it's getting there. That is called The Fruitful Consultant, sharing tips and advice in a format that is going to be very similar than the Tiny MBA, which is one of my favorite business books, by the way. So it's like knowledge pills, right? And then my other goal was to play around more with Discover. And unfortunately, I haven't set and allocated to do the type of test that I wanted, but I know that another person, by the way, to follow for this particular topic is Morty Oberstein. He was sharing the other day how he tends to monitor very well of what he doesn't click or what he clicks, and based on that, what ends up being recommended by Discover, this sort of thing. So it's interesting. And I have to say something, right? If you do a little bit of YouTube SEO or YouTube optimization, this only reminds me of the YouTube algorithm, the YouTube recommendation algorithm, right? The way that you engage with videos, and the videos that you watch from the same channel, or from the same topics, or topics that are connected with others. These are the ones that will end up being referred to you at the end of the day. So potentially the algorithm is not necessarily the same, right? This is our other ways, but it reminds me of trying to identify your profile as a user, and what are your interests and affinities, and based on that to refer you more content at the end of the day. In this case, it's content in another format, but not like in YouTube that is video, right? But yes, it's sort of like the same sort of goal, right? Like to refer you content that they know that you are going to like, and will keep you engaged, and will keep you reading, in this case, not watching, but reading, right?
Oh my God! You just made a big bomb there. Thank you for sharing that information. You were actually talking about YouTube real quick. I know we're coming close to the time, but we had one question that came in here on YouTube, and I know you do some video SEO as well. So it's here. So Zen asks, amazing. Do you think the method with subscriptions to your newsletter can be applied to YouTube subscribers? If so, what are some 1 or 2 tips you can give to increase subscribers?
Well, definitely. So one of the things that the reasons that I was mentioning before that I started the newsletter was because I try to, and this is something that I don't always succeed because of time, but I try to publish Crawling Mondays, and after I publish Crawling Mondays right away, to include it in the newsletter and refer Crawling Mondays in the newsletter. So it gets a lot of views very early on. And because we know that freshness plays a factor, a lot of people watching the video after it is published. So YouTube understand that it's very popular and people like it, and they will refer the video even further to this type of audience, right? So I try to do this and play with this too, to refer even more people to watch the video, that for sure. Then of course for the video, I will say to create playlists and to embed the playlist rather than to embed a single video, to facilitate users to keep watching even more videos. And it's very simple sometimes, like even ask the user to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and make it easier for the video at the end of the videos to feature a couple of more videos that are connected with the topic that you are talking about, and to refer the user to keep watching those particular videos. And the positive thing is that, well, YouTube itself highly facilitates this with the features that they have in the YouTube video editor, right? Like to feature this videos at the end of your videos. So yes, I believe that this is like it's a little bit crazy because it's what we talk about behavior and psychology a little bit. This has a little bit more to do a little bit with community management, right? How and YouTube is certainly also a community. Another little trick that if you go to any established YouTuber channel, you will see they will tend to pin the first comment and say thank you for watching the video. Remember to leave your question within the comment and like the video or engage or incentivize the users to engage within the comment. And of course, do community management within the comment, actually replying to the question, things like that, to generate that engagement, right? So that also sort of tends to work well. And then another little trick that I see happening again and again is, well, of course, in the description of the video, to incentivize the generation of timestamps for the video, to add like the timings of the different areas or topics that you cover within the video, but also add the hashtags, right? 3 hashtags that you can add of topics, of terms that are connected with what you have talked about within the video too, so they become clickable. And then the video will show whenever someone searches for that hashtag too. So yes, there are different sort of way. But what I will highly recommend, I remember at a time I talked with Brian Dean. His Backlinko channel is insane in the number of views and engagement, etc. Right. Then also I spoke with Anton, who works at Semrush, and also with Craig Campbell, who has a very big channel over YouTube. And then I started to ask them, hey, realistically, how many of those viewers come from search? And literally, like the higher share of them didn't come from search, but because of their social following, their newsletter, other ways to refer them. So look, when thinking about growing your YouTube viewership, and don't think necessarily like pure SEO. How do I optimize this only for search? Because certainly the majority of those views, don't expect them to come from search necessarily, right? But from all of this additional following and community that is connected with you.
Wow, so many knowledge bombs. Thank you for that. I mean, we're coming very, very close to time. Zen says thank you. That's very actionable and simple to do. Thank you, Aleyda. You're so engaging. I like the pinning tip to call to action. Great tips. And heart emoji. So I have to ask this question before I let you go. I asked this to all my SEO professionals here. What is that one, if someone wants to get into SEO, looking just to get into it, what's that piece of advice that you can give them?
My piece of advice will be to go to learningseo.io, of course, and follow the roadmap pretty much, right? Try to follow and go through all of the resources as much as possible in those areas that actually are of interest of you. So the basics, the fundamental, and then also those areas where you see that you want to develop much more experience and focus on. But then also test what you learn. Create your own website. It costs nothing or minimum nowadays to buy your own domain or whatever domain. Implement a website with WordPress or Wix or whatever you want, and start testing and playing with what you have learned to check and validate for yourself what works or not, and this makes all the difference, I believe, because even if, of course, when you start working on an SEO as an SEO, the scope and complexity of the implementations for your clients will be different than the one that you have for your own rookie site. At least you understand what it takes, right? A little bit to change things and understand how it is done, how much does it take, etc. And you verify if what you have read over there is true or not, things like that. So I will say test for yourself, validate yourself. This is super important, and learn by doing. That is the best way of learning.
Love it. Okay, so coming close to the end here, Aleyda, thank you for coming. If there's any last tips, advice, comments that you want to say to the audience to make this episode feel complete for you, the stage is yours.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was wonderful to be able to share with you. And please, of course, as I mentioned, if you want to learn SEO, learningseo.io. But also, if you're an SEO who would like to work remotely or to change your jobs, right? Go to remoters.net/jobs. You will find a job board with an SEO section, and it's completely free also to use and also to post any jobs there, and subscribe also to the alerts in case you want to be updated. And then on the other hand, if you also want to keep up with all sort of topics and regarding SEO, like from how-tos to SEO project management to SaaS SEO, e-commerce SEO, I cover a little bit of everything, right, with guests that I have. Watch Crawling Mondays that I tend to now publish once every 2 weeks.
Love it. All right, guys. Aleyda, can you hold on for just one quick second once I sign off real quick if you don't have any meetings or anything like that? Let me go ahead and sign off here.
No problem at all.
All right.
No, in fact, I have to say, this is like my last thing of the week. It is 10 p.m. for me.
Oh, wow.
Right now.
Thank you for staying up late with us
Only
here.
for you, Andrea. I'm staying here. It's like I will be with my little wine already watching series at this point because yes, unfortunately, I'm still like not vaccinated. I cannot get out yet.
Oh,
so I will be like already relaxing a little bit. But yes, I am with you over here, which I have to say it has been like the best way to finish the week, right?
Yeah.
Completely refreshed and happy and a nice conversation, of course.
Thank you. All right, guys. This concludes another episode of the SEO Video Show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get notified for next week. And then so have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Friday. Peace out.
Thank you for watching. Hope you come back next week. Make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss a thing. Hope you learn something new, cause the vibe is incredible. From the special SEO professionals, SEO Video Show. Let's work. Want to see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera helping you step it up. No delay right now. Time to level up. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Woo!